when they raise their vibration, they're connecting to the frequency of the soul, the original blueprint of the soul, and it kind of, they find each other and it connects in again. Perhaps the trauma in whatever situation or experience that has occurred, it dropped their frequency so much. And when we elevate our frequency in this dancing, because you're very high frequency, that's one thing. As soon as you came on, I was like, whoa, this girl, I love it, you know? So I love that you're like tapping into their true authentic soul. They're raising their vibration to that energy level that is the original divine blueprint.
You just said it perfectly. I was really locked down with fear, which obviously is like the contractions, the lowest, one of the lower levels of when we talk about frequency vibration, and it contracts. But I was really scared that whatever we were doing in the room wasn't going to be able to translate outward to people, and that they wouldn't feel what you just described. And for me, that was the whole reason to do it.
Is incorporating dance into stretching and yoga and the calisthenics. So for a kind of a hairy guy with 2 left feet and a bit uncoordinated, like for me, going to a studio full of hot girls and standing there up the front in the second row, tripping over things and trying to dance, like I don't think I'd be going to the studio.
That's why I quit dance.
On today's elevated conversation, we welcome Marnie Alton, a lady from beautiful LA. She helps people with movement, moving the body for transformation in the healing ways. She is a beautiful high frequency soul, and we've really enjoyed this conversation. Marnie Alton, everyone.
Marnie, hi and welcome to Elevated Conversations. And if only people could have heard how much fun we were having before we started recording. It's like, I feel like we already know one another and we've already had the best
I agree with
chat.
you on that. So we'll see if we can keep it going.
Now we're live, right? And when we talk about healing, becoming a better version of ourselves, working through all of this, this journey of life, trying to find a meaning to life, like what are we here for, etc., etc. Roxy and I are always fascinated about checking out new modalities, like trying to find different ways to heal. Because some people find one way, and we sometimes feel like they almost become addicted to that particular way, whatever that is for them. They only do yoga, or they only do breath work, or they only do juice cleanses, or etc. So when we came across your information and we checked out some of your moves online, we were very excited to talk to you today, have this conversation. Oh, that didn't sound great. But anyway, we can run with that. Perhaps you better quickly share with people what your moves actually are, hey? And what we're talking about.
Okay, so my moves come out of a fitness-based program, which was not my life journey necessarily. It was sort of my second life, becoming focused on fitness. It's been 17 years now, so it's been a minute that it's been my second life. But yeah, so I have created a program that is based in what, if you want to call a fitness modality, is based in bar. My training was dance, because in my previous life I studied dance and theater and all that kind of fun stuff. And so that's where it all sort of lives foundationally. And I guess in some ways it started more as really physical modality, my moves. But I saw, after years of having the opportunity to be in rooms with people, primarily women, but being in rooms with people where there's like a real energy exchange, recognizing how much deeper and bigger it went. So it wasn't as though I started this thinking it was going to be deeper and bigger. That truth came to me through practice and through just seeing it happening to people. And that was a real aha for me in the power of what this was. So the moves will live in sort of a way that you would say are like more traditional fitness based, meaning we move in bar, there's yogic practice, there's calisthenics, there's cardiovascular training, there's some weight training, there's flexibility and mobility training. Because we're online now, it's also evolved to another level, even beyond what we were doing in the studio, which I think is one of the exciting things about being in this particular field, is we're always learning more, or we have the opportunity to learn more, both in practice and then through study and through technology and all the things we learn about the body and the mind and all that stuff. And so that's been a cool, when you said about people getting stuck in a healing path, or a specific healing modality, I, over the years, have given myself permission to evolve with things as I learn, either from the people I'm working with, from the wellness community, from my own research and study. And so online, we actually hit a larger range of, we have meditation practice, we have specific stretch classes, specific cardio dance classes, weight training classes. So the way that it's presented is what you would probably consider like a more typical fitness platform, right? You can look at, hey, I want to sculpt or sweat or stretch, but all of it is rooted in the connection of the body and the mind, and how healing movement can be, and how healing especially it can be when it's done with mindfulness and joy.
I love it. I feel like I want to jump on your platform and give it a go, because I've seen some of your Instagrams where you're dancing and then you drop into a yoga pose, and I'm like, oh, I like yoga, but I like dancing. And so this modality, this creation is so amazing. Thank you so much for listening to it and going forward, because I know that through COVID you had some hard times with everything being shut down. So you kind of pivoted at that stage online. Is that how that kind of came about?
Yeah, it's exactly how it came about. So the industry was already moving towards being more online, but I was so in love with my studio and with the classes. Every class was sold out. Every class was, no one was like, I gotta go work out. They're like, I got in, and so every experience of people being in the room where they were excited to be there, to have a space, to see friends, to make new friends, to connect with each other. So it was such an intoxicatingly positive experience. And I'm not actually even exaggerating about that. It was never like, I gotta go teach. It was always, I lived above the studio, and I could hear them showing up like a half hour. I would run down maybe like 20, I'd get ready and run down maybe like 15 minutes before class, right? But I almost couldn't go too early, because then I would get all caught up with people. I'd be like, oh my God, it's 10 minutes. We're still talking, and class should have started 10 minutes ago. So I kind of had to go down and start the show and wait for the conversations afterwards. Anyway, all that being said, is that was just a real lifestyle for me. And it felt like the best way to spend every day. It was such a positive experience. And so although a lot of people were going online already, and from a financial model, that made a lot of sense. Yeah. It just makes sense. Yeah. It wasn't where I was drawn, and my energy was so taken by the space. Plus I had, 15 teachers and a brick and mortar, 2,000 square foot brick and mortar to take care of, and all that kind of stuff. So I was very reluctant to do the other, and I always had some sort of excuse. And what's kind of wild is a week before lockdown, so about a month or two before lockdown, I decided with my team that enough is enough, and we have to get some sort of videos, at least practice with them. We have to at least start doing this, because we had people who literally fly in to come take classes. So for birthday trips or whatever, they would make their own little mini retreats and come to the studio to take. So we were like, this is good. I could justify it because I could see that people wanted it that were not in a radius that could drive to the studio on any given day. And so that motivated me enough to sort of get out of my own way and get some videos together. So about a month and a half before, my team and I decided we're going to do this. And of course, in pure Capricornian and also fearful sort of state, everything felt so free in the studio in real time. Because if you said something silly or something happened, or it was just such an organic experience. And for me, the moment you put it in a video, it was like there forever. You know, like it's there forever.
Yeah.
And as I talked about earlier, I love the idea of growing and evolving. And suddenly it was like, this is representational of you and it's there. And so that freaked me out. That actually just freaked me out. And so I didn't necessarily want to commit to it. I broke down. Also, I'd done a Pop Sugar video or two, and it had amassed like millions of views. And so that gave me a little bit more confidence as well, because I saw that there was some sort of translation that occurred, and then it's okay, you know. So we made a few videos. About a week before, I hired a small crew, and about a week before COVID shut down, lockdown here in Los Angeles, we took the weekend and filmed both the class and just to capture the class, and then 3 or 4 videos that were produced videos that we really had no specific intention, because you're not going to launch a whole platform on 4 videos. It was kind of the test, and we weren't really sure what we were going to do with that. So that happened. What's wild is that by accident, we also captured like the very last on film, the very last like big sold out class, because COVID, as we all know, happened so quickly. Right. And like, at least here in LA, there was definitely like talk about it, but people were still going to the workouts. People were still doing their spots. So like Saturday of the week before we filmed, classes started getting quieter and quieter that week. And by the following Saturday, it was half the people showing up. And by Monday, the country was on lockdown.
Wow.
So we actually caught on film like the last moments of the studio, which is so wild, right?
Wow.
Divinely
Yeah, it was
placed
really
the
cool.
idea of filming for you to have that in your history books, even though you didn't like it. We always grow from what we don't like. It's an opposite
Sure
game,
do.
right? It's like
Yeah.
your higher self is like trying to nudge you, like just listen, and you're like, what are the messages for today? And it's like, well, you're not listening. And then finally we listen, and it works out so divine. Congratulations.
Really
Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you that you were able to pivot, because so many businesses in that time weren't able to open, and it had significant damages on their like income flows.
Well, that was one part that was really hard. It's feeling a sense of responsibility to my team and staff. That was really rough, because we did a lot of things where we helped them set up Zoom so they could teach from their homes. And we tried to keep as much of at least at the beginning, because initially we thought it was temporary, right? So we were all going through a lot. Plus we were dealing with a lot of this stuff. I mean, we had to board up the studio 2 or 3 times because of the protests and things going on. We were right in the epicenter of it all. Our street went on fire. You know, like there was a lot of stuff going down emotionally as well. And so we were really weird, like literally plywooded up, isolated in the space, and still trying to help the staff, still trying to be able to let them have a job to do through this, stay employed through this as well. So it was a big time when I look back on it. Anyway, yes. But the studio couldn't open. I mean, fitness studios were the last thing to be allowed to open. So I was sitting in a 2,000 square foot space for 9 months, and we were not allowed to open the doors. And that was wild. We were not legally allowed to open.
Time in Australia too. You weren't allowed to do lots of things. Like, basically you couldn't leave your house unless you were specifically going to get groceries or something of that nature. And if you got caught somewhere between the grocery store and your car, they'd say, "What are you doing?" You got to have an answer. Yeah.
Really?
Full on. So, and I mean, thank goodness that's over. Some say for a little while, some say for longer. Who knows? We won't go there. I wanted to ask, because I think this would be a great place where we really zero in on exactly what this is, because what you're talking about is incorporating dance into stretching and yoga and the calisthenics and the weight building with music. So for a kind of a hairy guy with 2 left feet and a bit uncoordinated. Like for me, going to a studio full of hot girls and standing there up the front in the second row, tripping over things and trying to dance, like I don't think I'd be going to the studio, right? I mean, unless I was single and I was trying to pick up, I don't think I'd be going to the studio. So
Right.
the home thing, right, might be something where I could go, hey, right, let's incorporate this in as a modality, particularly as a family. Like I presume you might get, right, a family doing these exercises, because one of the things Roxy and I have found in doing sessions with people, and that look, they come to us often because they want to get clarity on their emotions, or they want to remove some sort of psychological self-belief that's holding them back. And when we get in there working with them, what we often realize is the physical aspect of their being's all out of whack as well. So no wonder they can't sleep, and no wonder they're stressed. Very often it's linked to lack of movement. So can you share about your creative way of getting the lymphatic system moving, getting the blood pumping, and how that helps a person physically, mentally, emotionally? Because I think it's brilliant, even for a guy who I would never go to a dance studio or fitness studio where there's dance, unless, of course, that excuse I made up. But there'd be many guys going, that could be a good idea.
And 2 left
We did have a couple.
Can you imagine me in Lycra and singlet tailored up to the dance studio? Yeah.
See what I'm going to put up with, Marnie? It's like,
yeah, it's
every day.
Okay, so how does that all work together? Well,
Yes.
I really believe in harmony, right? And so our bodies are a complex system, but they are not really that complicated, right? And the more that we can work with our basic foundational building blocks, the more that we can be of service to self and healing. And so if we look at just starting the base of it, when you talked about the lymphatic system or the circulatory system, cardiovascular and stuff. So we are primarily composed of water, right? We know that water in movement is going to be in better shape than stagnant water. That's kind of how it goes. So in the most simple form, and our lymphatic system tells us that, which is responsible for our immunity, which is responsible for detoxification, our fluid retention levels. So if we feel kind of like, maybe puffy or inflamed in any way, which thus then can lead to a whole myriad of sensations that stop us from enjoying life, like pain, exhaustion, fog, frustration, feeling outside of our bodies. So our lymphatic system, which is fluid, which is, we'll just call it water for the sake of it, it needs to be in movement to be able to be doing its job. So there's our blood flow, our circulatory system. So our 2 primary systems that give us energy and that remove waste from our body. And movement is the very best way to keep those 2 systems functioning. Bottom line. And so for me, I feel as though creating movement that flows like water, that's why I love working with beats. So music, you could say that we're dance-based, but everything that I do in dance is extremely accessible. It's on purpose, not a routine that you're learning. My goal is to keep you in a sense of flow that mimics the flow of your body and water and, whatever, days and breath and all that stuff, with a sense of joy. So we're not taking ourselves too seriously. I often say when we do in most classes, we do a short cardio dance. We do basically for one song. And that's because that's just a great way to get everything stimulated. A body in motion stays in motion. So we begin with a short warm up, which stimulates the lymphatic system, which stimulates breath and blood flow. So now it's already moving. So now instead of having to always get that train going, we can kind of just like ride the train. We can enjoy the ride. And so having movement that attaches to beat. So that's something that I think that for me, it's very hard for me to go into a space and move my body not to the music. I know that's not everybody, but it aligns with your heart rate, right? So a different level of heart rate is going to indicate a different state of your body. So if your resting heart rate, if you're at like 60 to 80, you're in a calmer state, right? If you're at 120 to 130, you're in a more elevated, pumpy state. And music has different BPMs that match those rates. And so you have music that supports whatever state you're trying to create, because all the states are important. They're all pillars that lead to the tapestry that is us feeling fabulous in these bodies and in this life, right? It's not one or the other. It's all of them melded together. And the more imbalanced they can be, the more in harmony, the more they can be talking to one another, the more we're going to feel what we think is happy and energized and healthy and connected, right? And so moving in a way that's like water, moving in an environment that is in harmony, meaning the music beats, your heart rate, the motions flowing together. That's a big part of it for me. And then additionally, a lot of the moves we do specifically activate the primary lymph nodes in the body, which is not hard to do because they're in major motion parts, right in the underneath in the armpits and all the way and around in the collarbone, and then in and around the hips and groin, and even around the knees. Like we're working through breath and diaphragmatic breathing through the abdomen, so keeping all of that going. So we're doing all of this like deep, complex physiological work, but it's like to do a lipa. So it's not so serious.
I love that,
because I don't think it should all be so serious, but it doesn't have to also, it can have integrity and not have to feel like a chore.
Yes,
it can have integrity and joy.
Yes,
I think is the point of it.
I think that's part of the wisdom of this, because if you can help a person get a beneficial result, particularly when they don't even realize what they're getting, they just feel the result. In terms of, if you sat there and you said, now we got to sit down in this class and we're going to do a chakra meditation for the next half an hour and focus on each chakra and stimulating it and getting the energy flowing in the body, like some people might yawn or lose concentration or not be able to do that. But if you masquerade, we're going to turn on the different glandular systems of the body, which just happen to be 7, which just happen to align with the chakras, and we're going to get your heart beating and turn on your lymphatic system and listen to this great new song I've put on, right? And you've got to do a funny dance and etc. But the person's focusing on the different things, right? Of course you feel good physically, but at the same time, you might be releasing frustration out of the system. You might be letting go of worry that you were holding on to.
Totally.
Even though you're not banging on about opening up your root chakra and stimulating your kundalini, you would be doing that.
Right.
And sometimes people, I don't want to know how it works. I just want to feel good and I want the benefit. And I feel like that's the beauty of this for some people. See, I like to know. I like to joke around and have fun, and I like to know. But some people,
we do that too.
Dance,
We do that too. So that's one way that I did want to differentiate, because I appreciate all that you said, because I think it's totally right on. And I think part of that is that expectation. Like if I'm told that I am someone who want to be a good person and I want to do a good job. That's just how I've been. That's how I was born. I'm that kid. And there's a lot of those kids in the world. And what I found is that a lot of times what would become a block to that for me is I wanted integrity in what was going on. I wanted to know things. I've always been hungry for information and practical information. And I want to know, like, give me the real talk and tell me what's happening right now. Give me the why, right? But as I go through all that, I also am challenged with the thought of having expectation of what I should do and then what it should look like. So this is how I should meditate, because I read about this and I did my research and I'm supposed to feel this. And then if at any point I think I'm not feeling, or I'm not focused, or I'm not doing this right, or I didn't have the time, I start it induces anxiety for me, because I feel as though my expectation of self was not met. And so a lot of the philosophy that I have is like, show up on the mat as you in whatever given day and give what you can do without expectation. That doesn't mean without effort. That doesn't mean without purpose. That doesn't mean without energy or, all these kinds of things. but it does mean without expectation. And so the other thing that I like to do is we get into a space of joyfulness, but we're also always focused on the why. So like in a typical, I don't know, bar stuff, like what the traditional bar. Okay. So let's just look at like the most traditional bar. Do you know a bar?
He's asking what kind of bar are you talking about?
Like a ballet bar, like
ballet
Not
bar.
a strip club, Peter.
Not familiar
my
with those places.
My dad, for like the first 5 years of me teaching, thought I was a stripper.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Because he never asked me. And I was like, I'm teaching
so
bar.
Proud, did he? I'm so proud. You're like, what do you mean I do that? Sorry.
Talking about, Dad. Anyway, so yes, it's not an uncommon thought. But let's say you're just moving in a space where you're using a bar or a stable surface or the side of a chair to activate your core, your quad, your calves, your glutes, everything, and you're doing these your little pulses. Imagine you're on your tippy toes and you're just kind of moving down and up, 1 inch, down and up and down and up. And it seems really visually simplistic, and it's doing a whole bunch of stuff that we won't get into. But for example, one of the things we do is we create that. It's a great song. It's on the beat. We've warmed you up properly. Your body's in the right mode, all that stuff. But then as you're doing this, I'm telling you, this is the muscle that's firing. This is your quadricep muscle. Make sure that you have equal weight in both feet. As your body's negotiating its dominant side, it's going to notice in your feet, is 1 foot holding more weight? If it is, are you overcompensating? So there's a whole like beautiful mindfulness that occurs in every one of the positions. And I think the bar allows for that because it has elongated isometric sort of movements, right? So we can sit in something, and instead of going like, oh, I'm thinking about what I have to do after this, all of a sudden I'm tuning into the now, because everything in my environment is supporting that. My body's been primed for it. The music has the right BPM, that I'm feeling in harmony with my environment. I'm being set up in a way that's activating really functionally in my body. And now I'm paying attention to it. And there is such a power to that. That is the way that this work for me really lends itself to being mindful meditation. For me, I am someone who, at least at this point in my journey, seems to be able to access mindfulness and meditation more consistently in a space where I am stimulated physically as well. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, your brain, if you're balancing, your brain has to focus in the moment. It just does. Your body goes to the moment, because or else you're going to fall over. If you're in a situation where your body is physically being activated to a space where it's outside of its comfort zone, it's going to suddenly be noticing the now, and it's either going to be negotiating like, do I want to stop this or do I want to keep going? And why would I want to keep going? Because so there's all of this way that you start just paying attention to what's happening. And then you're paying attention to breath, and then it really becomes a real mind-body connection in just such a powerful way for me.
I love it. I love that you share it with such high frequency. Can only imagine the energy in the room when you used to do studio sessions, and how powerful and potent the high frequency is. And I mean, like, a lot to your point where we're like connecting in with our body in these classes, in these moments, because a lot of us are in our head thinking about picking up the kids, or what we're having for dinner, or okay, I've got to go to the shops after this to do that, post office, whatnot. I've got to get that email off, constantly just future thinking, when we're all just to be in this now moment and be present. So I really love that you're getting them, like a student in your class, to feel their muscles in their body, because it brings us back to the present moment and what's here right now. And then we are then embodied. So we as you know,
embody. You just got it. Sorry to interrupt. Please continue, but you got it.
Yeah, natural advertising. So when we were doing the medicine, we were talking about this earlier, that was our journey for our awakening. A lot of people are, having trauma in their childhood, and they often split from their soul. And for me, I was outside of my body. The trauma here on this planet, in this energy, for some reason we split. And so I feel like with this practice that you're doing is really bringing that soul energy back into the body. Have you seen this kind of happen in some of the students and the people that you're coaching?
Yeah, that is such a cool way of articulating it. Because I've seen the effect, and I one of the things that really keeps me going and really motivates me personally is what really kind of surprised me. We get so many correspondence, DMs, emails. I get cards, physical cards and letters, which is like my favorite thing, from people talking about the shifts that it's done for them, not just mentally and anxiety, which there's a lot of that, but what you just described, which is they found that doing this work has allowed them to shift something on such a bigger level, be that removing a toxic trait from their life, or a relationship, or changing their environment in whatever capacity. And they attribute it to this movement, which to me just attributes it to the fact of what you just described, which is whatever they are doing on the mat with our practice is giving them that sense of wholeness again. Because when you're in a sense of wholeness, you can no longer put up with that which is trying to tear you apart, right?
So it's like raising, when they raise their vibration, they're connecting to the frequency of the soul, the original blueprint of the soul, and it kind of, they find each other and it connects in again.
Yes.
Perhaps the trauma in whatever situation or experience that has occurred, it dropped their frequency so much. And when we elevate our frequency in this dancing, because you're very high frequency, there's one thing, as soon as you came on, I was like, whoa, this girl, I love it, you know, a bright light. And, you know, we talk about raising of the vibration, you know, that's the goal. The scale of consciousness, we have to raise the vibration to get to love, joy, and authenticity, which is the highest, right? So I really sense that like this class is bringing that natural, playful energy out of the person, because you're not doing it like, you know, the traditional dance classes where you've got to, you know, make sure you do everything right. And like, because I've got some friends that have they're dance mums, and they say it's like a nightmare how like strict and like
that's why I quit dance.
Serious, so serious. And we always laugh because the Palladians always go to us, why so serious, you know? So I love that you're like tapping into their true authentic soul. They're raising their vibration to that energy level that is the original divine blueprint.
You just said it perfectly. I don't think I've articulated it in that way. But you said it perfectly. Yeah, I think that's happening. It's really cool. It's really cool. And it's really cool also to see, going kind of back to what we talked about initially, which I think lends to other people to like have an adventure, basically, is I was really locked down with fear, which obviously is like the contraction, the lowest, one of the lower levels of when we talk about frequency vibration, and it contracts. But I was really, really scared that whatever we were doing in the room wasn't going to be able to translate outward to people, and that they wouldn't feel what you just described. And for me, that was the whole reason to do it. That was the whole reason to do it. Yeah. Not to be paid to work out, or I don't know, whatever reason you would think to do it, or to create a business. That was not my motivation. My motivation was the reason I opened a studio is because I spent years as a side hustle teaching, and realized how much better that made my life and the people's lives around me, and decided that's what I wanted to do with it. The reason I opened the studio was to facilitate that. Then I got that. What I described at the beginning was that just like being in that space was the most magical, you know, moment, if you can imagine that it was a workout class, but it was. And then when the transition towards going online, if I hadn't been forced out of it, who knows how long the fear would have kept me locked down, you know? So thank you for those things that make us grow and make us uncomfortable. But it did translate out. It translates to South Africa and UK and Italy and Singapore and Australia, a lot of people in Australia, all over the world. And I'm like, holy shit, like that is the power of vibration. It goes through a screen to different time zones. It goes through, I only teach live. So everything that's on, it's really important to me in our world of filtered, and we take 300 photos to post one photo. And, and even my first 3 videos, those had a director and a producer and a DP and a sound guy and like editing. And even though I did the videos straight through, that's kind of I come from live theater. I like that much better than calling cuts. Something about being in the now and really just having to live in the now and not having a space where you can stop and try again. I'm not a fan of that. I really jive on this concept of like what will be, and that puts me in the present. And so I did that, but still it was produced. And then when lockdown happened, there was no crew that could come in. So we just like rolled with an iPhone and all the messiness got captured. And that actually was the thing that made me go, okay, I can do this. Like if I can be messy and other people can be messy, or I can maybe have a brilliant moment or a terribly ridiculous moment or whatever. I'm a human. So I teach twice a week. So every day is a little different for me as well. I'm going through my own emotional journey, physical journey, the seasons, or whatever the heck it is. I'm not showing up like a robot on the mat every day either. So I'm showing up and they're showing up, and it's a real interaction. There is no filter, there is no cut. Whatever gets put up there was what happened, whether the ball flew across the room or the microphone rolled out. Oh well, that's life. You know what I mean? Usually it's all good, but sometimes stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff does happen. Like when we're doing this podcast right now, the dog's barking outside. It's like, oh well, they're gonna be barking, and that's just what it is, because there are no secrets in the universe. When we look at the universe, we can tap back into all the timelines at any time, and it is what it is. That's the record. That's the record keeper. We can't hide anything. So it's great that we're now stepping into the true, authentic self, and activity experiences exactly how it is. There's no filter, like you said. I love that. Yeah.
And when you do that, you give other people the permission to do that as well.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is an important like life purpose. I really do. I think that living that way, both allowing your light to shine really brightly when it's shining and not needing to keep it at a dim level, allowing for, I always say this because we use color therapy in class, but like we want to live in Technicolor. I want to live in all of the colors, and they're all gonna have a different vibe, and they're all gonna show up at different times. And when you can allow yourself to kind of be authentically on that ride, you give other people permission to do that too. And that to me is why I show up. Yeah.
I love that.
That's a good way.
I think there's just so many.
I like the brightness and the dark.
The rainbow light body we've been led to lately. I think there's just so many illusions in life. Everyone just wants the truth now, right? They don't want any more false or, smoke and mirrors. They just want the clear cut truth straight through there. So it's great that you're on that frequency as well. We love that. Thank you.
Now let's talk about Italy.
Italy. Let's talk about Italy.
Oh, okay.
The magic of Italy.
Look at your face line up. Italy. Here we go.
I love Italy. That was another big, scary endeavor, which was our first one was last year. For 100 reasons. It was something that I didn't take lightly to ask. It's going to be 21 of us. It's sold out. People to show up and to fly from all over the world, and literally planes, trains, and automobiles to get to this beautiful retreat on the Adriatic Sea, like this 9 acres of sort of rural Italian countryside with the sea and the olive orchard. And it's just a really wild experience, but it's no small thing to ask people to get there. I come from a long line of like single moms. I've seen a lot of them. I know what it takes to like keep a life and household and family running without a lot of support. And so for me, those are not only the people that might need it the most, but also the people who are risking the most to show up. And there's a real sense of responsibility for me around that, So I was so grateful last year when it was even beyond my expectation of how amazing it was, and how great, just how how healed people were in this 5 days. It was so cool. And so I couldn't wait to do it again. So we're actually going back again this year. So we're going October 13th to 18th, and we're going to the same spot, partly because there were just some really unique, cool things for my kind of work that we had there, which is like, we actually have a studio which has a ballet bar, you know, which is that can facilitate the whole class, which is really big. There's a lot of great places you can do yoga retreats because yoga is a little bit more malleable in terms of the space that you can do it in. But to really do a lot of the physical stuff that I uniquely love to do, the ballet bar really helps. And so we have that there, as well as, you know, the chefs were wonderful. The accommodations were so beautiful. So it just ended up being so special that I thought, why reinvent the wheel? There were so many people that couldn't make it to the year before. So we are doing it again.
I love how you're weaving in like the bits that you love. Like I saw that you're going, you know, dancing and yoga, meditation, beautiful food, glasses of wine, and beautiful conversations, and more like that relaxed, you know, it's like, it feels like it's you in a package, like your kind of holiday. And they say do what you love, right?
I think that healing happens a whole bunch of different ways, and I think that giving, for me, like one of the things that I thought was really wild last year, which was so cool. So it was not all women, but it was mostly women last year, and almost all of them traveled alone, sometimes for the very first time, and sometimes for the very first time leaving children or leaving partners, or, you know, taking time off from work. And we had a really diverse and interesting group of people there. But they all, and one of the things we did too is that in order to make it more accessible, we gave everybody shares a room. So everyone has a roommate. So we kind of made it like, this is a big slumber party. We're going to interact with people. We're going to get intimate with each other, and like, you know, really, really live big for this 5 days. And part of living big is working out and moving your body, and doing meditation, doing recovery classes, and journaling and intentional conversation and all that stuff. And some of it is letting them decide. And one night I had this whole very like healing night planned, and we were going to do it after dinner. And somehow dinner turned into a giant, what's your karaoke song? Let's open bottles of wine. That's what just happened. Just to random people, it just like naturally happened. And there was a little part of me was like, right, I thought it was really the healing night that we're supposed to be doing this. We're supposed to go back and we're going to do this breath work, and I have it all set up, and I have a meditation. We have to do this. And they were like, bunch of like, and or whatever. I don't even know, whatever their karaoke song was. And I realized, like, let it go, girl. This is their healing night. This is their healing night.
Yeah.
So
I
just let it go. And it was one of my favorite nights there with wild.
Yeah. And it's just like, you got to go with the flow, because that's the mental mind's trying to control and figure it out and schedule it in. And then sometimes these spontaneous surprises come. And that's like when we jumped on today, we're telling you about the ayahuasca, and you're like, oh my God, that's been dropping in for me. It's a synchronicity. I love surprises. And it's like, that is actually the magic of this journey, right? The magic, the synchronicities, the numbers, the signs, the beautiful people that we cross paths with. We just have loved this conversation today, Marnie. Thank you so much for coming on Elevated Conversations. We really enjoyed your energy, your high frequency. We're definitely going to check out everything that you have to offer. So please let us know where, and our listeners, where we can find you.
Oh yeah, it's pretty simple. It's Embodied by Marnie Alton, and .com, and you'll find the whole shebang there. We have a whole catalog. We just celebrated a couple weeks ago our 400th live class. We have about 420 different classes, all ranging from 20 minutes to 60 minutes. Our signature class was designed as being a 60-minute class, but obviously scheduling doesn't allow for that always. So we have shorter express classes as well. And they vary in intensity and levels, and they're all very accessible, and they're very customizable to whatever space you're in. So if you're an athlete, and someone who really loves high intensity movement, you can create that in your class. Or if you're someone who's seeking just more that time to connect and, and sculpt and stretch. There's that there too. It's really diverse in its offerings, which is something I'm proud of. I think it's great.
Good for you. Well done. Thank you so much. We look
Thank you
forward
guys for having me.
Yeah, of course.